It's always a challenge to write up a video about a game that's frankly rather short and asking for a price that I imagine most people will find a bit steep when they know that while the developer said this lasts roughly 4 hours, I managed to beat it in half that time. But I will say now, in case I spoil something, Industria is definitely worth playing. This is a game designed by a small development team who decided to aim for the appeal of games like Half-Life, but with a rather pleasing steampunk-like twist to it. And I think they did it well. Industria is a charming and visually stunning game set in a parallel universe, where a woman travels to it to try and find someone important, while also having to fend off a rampage of robots who have overrun a town in Berlin. The game begins with a rather concerning phone call from a man called Walter, and it turns out that the facility you both work at is being shut down and he's going to do something rather drastic. So with the concern in your mind, you immediately set out to find Walter, when you start to notice that outside of a police car you see zoomed down the street, there's nobody here, which sets a tone of isolation that never really leaves you throughout the entire game. Everyone's gone and you're not entirely sure why or where they are. You wander around the building briefly before making your way to this big machine, and that takes you a long way from home. Before arriving in the other universe as well, you'll briefly explore this library that gives off a similar feeling to a game called Control, where everything looks normal, but it's just slightly off, and if you blink you'll probably miss it. Now, I strangely love these moments in this game because it not only breaks up the pacing so it's not all crammed in your face at once, but there's also a part of this which is rather chilling. I love exploring it. It's quiet, in black and white, and nothing really makes sense. You tend to follow a similar route each time, but there's always something slightly different, whether it's where you start, what you catch in the corner of your eye, or what's shown at the theatre, and like any good performance goes, Industria sets the scene quite well. Upon leaving the library for the first time, you wake up in what appears to be an abandoned factory in a place called, I forgot to add it onto the thing, in a place called Hackervig. From here, you'll slowly make your way down through the town, unravelling the truth behind what happened here, while also keeping a lone survivor company over the radio. Now, I would continue to go over the story, but due to the short length of this game, if I say anything else, I'm probably going to end up spoiling the entire thing, so if you really want to know how the story goes, I would suggest buying the game and then playing it for yourself. Trust me, while there is a story to this game and it is a bit of a walking simulator at points, there are a lot of robots to shoot. These robots that you deal with range from slow to fast melee types, ranged enemies, and even ones that explode when they get close to you. The roster of enemies you encounter in this game is definitely basic and small, especially since the guns in this game actually feel rather good. The weapons not only look good and sound good, they even feel decent. I especially love using the SMG, and even the melee weapon, while feeling a bit underwhelming, really helps put an emphasis on how strong the enemy can be if you're unprepared. The one thing I don't like, however, was the sniper rifle. It wasn't a terrible weapon, in fact it's probably the strongest gun in the game, but this scope is awful. Not because of how it zooms in, more because it's actually scuffed, and I don't mean bugged. When I say it's scuffed, I mean the glass is literally scuffed, there are scratches all over it. At a design point, I can appreciate it, it looks nice, it makes sense, but aiming with this thing in certain lighting becomes near impossible, which, yeah, I should probably mention now, there is an issue with the lighting. This being a small development team, there are a few minor issues here and there with the game at the moment. Some models and objects are misplaced, the lighting at points can look broken, and the AI at some points can act a bit brain dead. But it's never anything game breaking. Well, besides the one time it crashed, but that was just walking down the stairs and I'm not sure what caused it. Besides that, the optimization is a bit hit and miss at points. I have an RTX 2080 Super, and there's definitely a few areas in this game where the frame rate starts to struggle. Now, the developers did address some of these issues already and have actually warned us at launch that this was going to be a bit unstable, but if that was the case, I don't understand why they didn't just delay the game slightly. It obviously could have used a bit more time in the oven, and while it's not overall terrible, it doesn't leave a good first impression to some players. Obviously, for me, it didn't bother me much because I beat it all in one sitting, and while that's partially due to the length of the game, it's also because I had a lot of fun with it. I won't lie, I wish this game was longer. There's aspects of the world the developers have created that I would love to explore, and there's many questions that are left unanswered. Plus, I hate to be that guy, the ending does definitely feel a bit rushed. There's not a lot I can really say about Industria because it doesn't go into a whole lot that makes it super unique or stands out, which in its current design isn't a bad thing, nor was it the intention. The game was clearly designed as a love letter to games it takes inspiration from, like Half-Life, and I think they show it rather well. I hope this game does well for the developers, as I don't want this to be the only time we visit the world of Industria, because I think the setting alone is a perfect place for a more fleshed out game. The theme is good, the soundtrack is surprisingly great, and the story is something I could get invested in. Bleakmill, you have made something with a fair amount of potential behind it, so I hope you don't waste it.